And live, it's In the Circle from Oklahoma City at the Women's College World Series. I'm Eric Lopez in the In the Circle studios. Joining us from Oklahoma City, very own Victor Anderson. Victor, we're finally here, the first in 2 years in the making. The Women's College World Series is here.
We have made it, my friend. It's been over 700 days since we last here, the Mecca of college softball, and now we finally get to see who is going to be the national champions, and we get things started right away, sir, on our opening night of ITC Live in OKC. And, brother, we're starting off with a bang tonight because joining us shortly is going to be the voice of Oklahoma softball, and we'll be hearing him on Westwood One's radio coverage. Yes, we said it, Westwood One's radio coverage of the Women's College World Series. The one and only Chris Plank, the hardest working man in the business, will be joining us very shortly.
He'll be joining us shortly. And then we're going to try to hook up with Justin McLeod of Justice World, who's somewhere in Stillwater, where Team USA, the U.S. Olympic team, is actually playing the USSSA Pride. So we hope to maybe catch him on the back end of this show. We're also obviously going to preview the Women's College World Series. We're going to discuss the matchups, obviously some news from television, big numbers, big surprise, not. On that. But before we get to that, reminder, you can send us questions on the comments page here on In the Circle SB. You can also send it questions on our Twitter, In the Circle SB. And Victor, tell the audience where they can find us.
Yeah, find us on our Twitter and Facebook pages at In the Circle SB. We'll be finding your questions and we'll be answering them all night long. And remember to subscribe and download to our podcast because we are going to have an original podcast come out tomorrow, independent of tonight's show. And if you got tonight's show is crazy. The guest list for tomorrow is huge. We're going to have Georgia assistant coach Rachel Fico. We're going to have SEC Network Plus analyst Dr. Megan Turk. And we got Jordan Shushelman from Cespedes Family Barbecue, who they caught the softball bug in this 2021 season. So that's all on our podcast coming out tomorrow. Subscribe and download and govern your sales accordingly.
Yeah, we're going to still be doing the podcast, while we're in Oklahoma City. We'll have at least 3 podcast episodes alongside being live every night. Some versions of this live show from time to time will be on the podcast as well, but we will have original content in each podcast. As Victor mentioned, on the Thursday podcast, we're going to break down in depth the Division II and Division III World Series that just concluded, plus some more talk about the Women's College World Series in Division I. We had Megan Turk, as Victor mentioned, on that show. All right, real quick, Victor, what has it been like so far? You arrived Wednesday early morning in Oklahoma City. Give me an idea on the buzz in the city.
It's palpable. I saw some James Madison fans on the way to the airport on my flight to Oklahoma City. We're connecting flights. There's a juice here. I think the fans are starved to see great college softball. And I was on my way. I was talking to a Lyft driver when I was picking up some stuff from my hotel room earlier today, and they were all talking about what's going on. And I think the fact, Eric, that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are going to be in that first session 1, that's going to really set the tone for how this Women's College World Series is going to start. Oklahoma with the National Player of the Year in Johnson and Allo, the Freshman of the Year in Tyre Jennings, on a record-setting pace, taking on the Cinderella story of this tournament. Cinderella to most people, not to those following the sport. James Madison, Odyssey Alexander, Lauren Laporte, making it as an unseeded team to the Women's College World Series. So you're really going to have that David versus Goliath storyline that a lot of people are going to be talking about and hyping up going into the matchup tomorrow morning.
No question about it. Oklahoma and JMU will get things started at noon, followed by Georgia and Oklahoma State. Of course, the evening session, Arizona versus Alabama, followed by UCLA and Florida State. If you want to check out, by the way, all 8 teams' press conferences they held on Wednesday, go to In the Circle YouTube right here. Subscribe. All 8 press conferences are there. All right, let's bring in the guy who's going to be the most busiest guy in the next week in Oklahoma City. It's his home. He's the host, folks. Every time we come to Oklahoma City, I can't think of a better guy to have on here on our first live show of the week than the voice of the Oklahoma Sooners and one of the voices now on Westwood One this week for the coverage of the Women's College World Series, our good friend Chris Plank joining us here. How you doing, sir?
What's up, Elo? What's up, Victor? Thanks for having me on, guys. It's I'll tell you what, it was a hustle to get here. I was texting with Eric earlier. I was wanting to make sure Victor, you're living this life, so I was trying to get credentials.
Yeah.
My great friend and everyone's softball idol Lauren Chamberlain was having an event tonight, so I was trying to get by there, and I was like, you know what? I can't be in 86 places at once. I got to be here with Vic and Elo. Let's talk college softball. Yeah, it's an exciting week, man. I'm so jacked up.
Well, thank you for doing that. We figured this was the only time to get you because you're going to be on the air pretty much the rest of the week after tonight. So
a lot of hot tea right now. A lot of hot tea. Got some Halls, Fisherman's lozenges. I'm ready to go, man.
Well, first of all, let's tell the audience what's ahead for you here in the next week, because you're going to be calling the Oklahoma games with Aaron Miller, which is going to be exciting. But you're also going to be doing the national radio broadcast, Westwood 1. This is the first year that Westwood 1 is carrying every game from Oklahoma City. In the past, they would just do the championship series, but now they're doing every game, and you're going to be a part of that. So just tell the audience what they can expect.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I don't know how I backed into this, but I'll take it. And I'm going to be any game, any session that's opposite of Oklahoma, I get to call. So, for instance, today we had a chance to sit in on the Florida State UCLA pressers and, Arizona. My gosh, how often has Arizona and Alabama played each other over the last couple of seasons? So that was really fun for me because, honestly, guys, I'm really pigeonholed in college softball. My focus is, as Patty Gasso's husband, Jim Gasso, likes to say, you got to have that championship mindset. You got to be set on your team. So I'm really focused on Oklahoma in the Big 12, but it's been really cool over the last week to focus on everyone. So Erin is joining us for the lead up in, you hope, Sooners end up in the championship series. She'll be calling the Women's College World Series on the Sooner Radio Network. Then Ryan Radke, legendary play-by-play guy, is going to be calling the early session. I'll be calling the late session on Thursday. Then he and Leah Miko have everything taken care of for the Friday night, and then we'll figure everything out on Saturday. But, Eric, I think it's a credit to you and Victor and everyone who covers this sport 24/7, 365 to see a Westwood 1 that says, hey, we've got to go nonstop, to see an ABC that says we've got to put a game on our network. And ABC, by the way, isn't done. They're going to put the championship series on ABC from the buzz that we've heard. I don't know if there's anything. That's the buzz. I haven't heard anything official yet, but that's the buzz that's out there. So we'll see. But, the bottom line more than anything else is there's a hunger and a thirst for college softball, and it's great to see it at this level right now.
And I'm glad you're one of the voices because you're one of the best voices in the
Thanks,
industry. Well, I'm curious your thoughts then, because you probably have studied all 8 teams here. What jumps out at you in this from what you're looking forward to seeing here the first few days here? Because this is – you mentioned that evening session is loaded with legendary head coaches, national champions. And then on the other side of the bracket, you got Oklahoma, but you got JMU, the Cinderella, if you will, and then Georgia coming in as an unseeded team, and, of course, Oklahoma State. So many different storylines.
Yeah, Eric, you hit it on the head. That's the great thing about this Women's College World Series is those who cover this sport and love it and are passionate about it, maybe looked at the way the seedings were set up and the selection show and said, oh my, we're getting a little bit SEC heavy. But what happens is, I don't know if it's natural selection or automatic correction, whatever way you want to look at it, it worked out. So you have 2 Big 12, you have a couple SEC teams that made it, got a couple of Pac-12 teams, you got an ACC, which, by the way, the ACC, you guys turned me on in the podcast to really pay attention to it. What an underappreciated conference in college softball, right? From Virginia Tech pushing UCLA to the limit to Duke and Clemson and the tough seedings they got, and obviously Florida State. So, and then you've got the Cinderella out of the Colonial Athletic Association. So, as mad as, and Eric, I've learned so much from you just about how the process works out, and hearing your interview that you did with the selection committee chair of how frustrating that could be. To see it play out the way that it has to get here, I think it's great. So, obviously, a lot of my focus has been on Oklahoma. I think this is a wild matchup. I can remember when Megan Good was leading James Madison on their run a couple of years ago. I was sitting watching them, and I thought, oh, gosh, I don't want to face Megan Good. It was like I want nothing to do with her. And then when I saw Odyssey Alexander started making her run, I thought, oh my God, I do not want anything to do with Odyssey Alexander from Oklahoma. And here we are. They get each other in the first round. It's kind of wild because, in talking just with the Westwood One guys today, their question was, well, how big of a deal is this that James Madison is here? And I mean, you think about this is the 9th year that they've been to the NCAA tournament, but to think about how it's not surprising to us, but how if you look and you see Odyssey and what she's done, and you realize they can mash as a team. And, oh, by the way, they're a non-Power 5 conference team. This is huge. So I think it's a bigger deal than any of us can even realize. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to watch them. Obviously, Aaron was there in Knoxville when they she called the action remotely when they were there in Knoxville. So that's exciting. But I'm glad you mentioned that late session, because the wild thing to me about the Florida State UCLA game and the Arizona Alabama game is how familiar those teams are with each other, and how all 4 coaches are like, that's not that big of a deal. We were talking to Kelly Inouye Perez today, and she said, I said to her, I don't know if you realize this, but since 2016, this will be your 5th matchup against Florida State in the Women's College World Series. They played each other 3 times in 2018. They played each other in 2016. And listen, Florida State's had the upper hand in those. Maybe that's why she didn't remember them. But, and I'm kidding, she's awesome. But I just think it's wild how familiar they are with each other. And it's also 2 teams, 4 teams, I guess that you will, 2 matchups that had a chance to play each other last year before everything shut down. Florida State and UCLA played before things shut down last year, and Alabama and Arizona played before things shut down last year too. So I'm excited. I think FSU, UCLA, I'm glad that's the late game, because I think we could be going late into the night. I think that has the feel of that game too between LSU and Florida State whenever they play 9 innings.
Yeah.
But, and listen, with Arizona, you can't help but wonder with every single game that happens, 36 years, 38 total with Mike Kendrea. Are we watching his final hurrah here? Has time away from the game with, COVID allowed him to realize, hey, there's some really cool things going on. I don't know, but it's fascinating in those 2 late matchups too.
I agree. And, think about it in sports today. Mike Krzyzewski basically reportedly is going to retire at the end of this upcoming college basketball season. You have to think about Mike Kendrea, who I've spoken to during this run, and he admits he appreciates it now more than he did, say, 10 years ago. And I think that's what's so fascinating. He's been so well open-minded. I don't know if, he's so well-spoken, has so many great opinions about the game. It's so awesome. The Women's College World Series is better when Arizona's in it. It just is.
Oh, I agree.
With the history, right? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I've just got these notes here. This is their 24th trip to the Women's College World Series. They've won 8 national championships, but they haven't been in one since 2007. So, or at least won a national championship, since 2007. So I think it's awesome, man. And I think it's also crazy how here are the SEC Slayers, right? Tucson Regional, they beat Ole Miss. They go to Fayetteville and knock out Arkansas. And now they get an Alabama team that, let's see, Arizona swept them last year, but Coach Kendrea said, I don't care about that because Montana Fouts didn't play. And then you go back to the postseason. Alabama won in 19. Alabama won in 2009 when they played in the Women's College World Series. They played in the Women's College World Series in 08 and 03. So programs that are familiar with each other, but I'm pumped about it. I think it's going to be a great evening.
All right, Victor, I've hogged up Chris here. Feel free to ask Chris a question. I figure you 2 are going to run into each other at some point. So
man.
I figure,
I got it. I mean, Victor's my guy here in Oklahoma City now. I'm asking him where are the places to go. He's not asking me.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, I'm not surprised at all, Chris. But for what we're seeing, I know, of course, being the voice of Oklahoma, you got to see Jocelyn Alo up close and in person with the outstanding season that she's had. How would you compare Jocelyn Alo's season to what we've seen from Sooner Grays? Of course, Lauren Chaman had a tremendous freshman season where she then set the freshman home run record. And what we're seeing from Alo this year, I don't think we're really getting a true appreciation of it because that Oklahoma lineup 1 through 9 has been so historically great and dominant.
Yeah, it's funny. Jessica Cootie and I cover softball a lot, and Jess is leaving for Nebraska this year, and we've talked a lot about Jossie's run versus Lowe's run, because she's a great friend of Lauren's. I feel like I've got a great relationship with Lauren. It's pretty incredible when you think about what Lauren did. And yes, did she have Shelby Pinley around her? Georgia Casey, Brianna Trang, all these other names. But I don't think Lowe had this supporting cast like Jocelyn has right now. One of the things that's made it so cool to me is how Lauren has embraced it, right? You guys saw the pictures from the Super Regionals. She's got the Jocelyn Alo jersey, which, by the way, she went out and had made herself. And she's got a special surprise for everyone at the Women's College World Series, does Lowe, for her new jersey that she's breaking out. But I just, it's hard for me because, I love Lauren. I love Lauren, but I have not missed a single game of Jocelyn Alo's career. Vic, I've been there every step of the way. Her freshman year in 18 was my third season that I did softball. And I remember it was, hey, this girl's coming from Hawaii that won a wrestling state championship, so you got to be ready for her. I'm like, wrestling? I didn't even know that women's wrestling was a thing. So it was kind of cool to watch her progress and see her dad, Levi, and see her family and her grandma, who are so supportive of her. So, yeah, I don't know if this answers your question or not, but it's just been really fun to see Jocelyn excel through the adversity that she's gone through. Because as Coach Gasso has brought up, during that 2019 campaign, we made a trip to Kansas and she didn't go with us. And it wasn't because of an injury. It was to make sure that everything was right where it needed to be mentally and physically and I guess commitment wise. And since that moment, man, she has not only been the best player that I've seen, one of the best players in college softball, and it comes to fruition today. You could hear the emotion when she was named Player of the Year. I'm so proud of her, and I'm so excited to see if she can reach that ultimate goal. Now, is she a DP? Is she a left fielder? Is she a right fielder? When the Sooners played in the Women's College World Series in 2019 against UCLA, she was the right fielder. Foley was the left fielder. She had been left fielder most of the season this year, and then she's been the DP. So it's going to be real interesting to see what Coach Gasso decides to do with her in the lineup.
No question about that. Let's talk about the circle, though, because obviously the offense, and rightfully so, gets a lot of the attention, as it should. It's a historic offense. It could go down as the greatest offense, depending on how this next week goes. But the thing that impressed me, Chris, about them on the Super Regional against Washington, Nicole May, who has been, using various roles out of the bullpen, gets the ball in game one and was dominant against Washington. Shannon Sale gets the ball in game two, leads them to the Women's College World Series, was fantastic. Gia Juarez doesn't pitch at all in the Supers, yet Patty Gasso today on the press conference said that Gia Juarez, this is the best. She's had the best practice in the last week or so, that this is the best Gia Juarez has looked and felt since she's been a Sooner. And it's fascinating and just following Coach Gasso through these press conferences, talking about challenging the pitchers from within that, hey, do you want the ball? You got to earn it. We're not going to give you anything. And I've been so fascinated by that. Tell us a little bit about Nicole May and the Sooner staff, because as we talk, I don't think anybody really knows who's going to get the ball against JMU or each game, which is kind of fascinating because you got three options at least at a minimum.
So, Eric, I won't lie. I was listening to you and Vic preview the Super Regionals, your big 2-hour podcast, and you were talking about your questions about the Oklahoma pitching staff. And maybe I'm a homer. Well, hold on. I'm a total homer, but maybe there is a moment where I'm like, Eric, Elo, what do you mean you're questioning the staff? And then I really kind of dug, and it hit me where I get it. I completely understand where anyone would question where this staff is right now, because what's your comparison? Paige Parker, Paige Lowry, Kalani Ricketts, you can go back to 2000, Jen Stewart. So I thought I have been blown away with what Nicole May has done since the Oklahoma State series. If Nicole May hadn't stepped up in Stillwater, there's a really good chance Oklahoma loses 2 of 3, if not all 3 of those games. There's a really good chance if she doesn't step up. Well, they kind of rolled in the Big 12 tournament, but there's a good chance if she doesn't step up against Wichita State, we're playing an if necessary game, a game 7. What she's done is she's so cool. I can't think of any other way to put it. When I was a freshman, I was insane. I would lose my mind. I was immature. I've seen freshman pitchers that, Kelly Inouye Perez said it today. They act like freshmen. Nicole May hasn't done that. And it's really been, Coach Gasso in her presser today, or when we were talking to her, brought up how as much as it sucked to lose to Georgia, maybe that was a watershed moment for Nicole May. And I think it was. I think Nicole May came away from that and realized, okay, I've got to be better in my preparation here. And if I'm going to get these college hitters out, I've got to adjust here, here, and here. So, yeah, if you're ranking the best pitchers for Oklahoma right now, it's Nicole May 1 and 1A, and Shannon Sale 2, and then G3. But what Coach said today about G was interesting. JMU has a very right-handed dominant lineup. So it would lead me to believe that we would see Shannon or maybe Nicole tomorrow, but it would not surprise me at all, Elo, to see G get the call because of how good she's been this week. And, that's what Oklahoma's wanted all year, guys. They wanted to see G just, I can't think of a better way to put it, but you get PO'd. Get mad. Go out there and take it out on the field. And it looks like she's done that this week with coach's comments at practice. And I'm here for it. I want to see. But, I don't know. We're so specific. Patrick Murphy in Alabama, they have 6 pitchers. Oklahoma's got 7 pitchers on their rosters. Do you have to worry about going with who's pitching the best, or can you go matchup-wise? So I'll be very fascinated to see what OU does tomorrow.
Me too. And that's kind of – you're right. You still – that was kind of my point is – by the Oklahoma standards, when the 13th team, which you and I have talked ad nauseum about, I felt that's the best team I've ever seen. They had an explosive offense, and they had a dominant pitching with Ricketts and Gascoigne 1-2. I was looking for that dominant Oklahoma pitching to complement this offense, and I saw it for the first time in that Washington Supers. Now, granted, look, Wichita State's a dynamic offense, and I warned you about that. I warned you about that, and a lot of people found that out. But I was so impressed with Nicole May. You're right. She is really stuck out to me there. Let's quickly, a couple things before we let you go. JMU, obviously, Odyssey Alexander pitching. They're going to be the Cinderella, if you will. Is there any extra pressure? Do you sense any? How does Oklahoma go into this? Can they stay calm, or there's going to be some nerves? What do you expect?
Yeah, I think there will be. It's funny because 2 weeks ago, when they announced that the capacity would be to 100%, I talked for about 10, 15 minutes with Jada and Tiara Jennings, and Jada Coleman's as cool as a cucumber. Eric, she's awesome. She's just amazing with her energy and her enthusiasm, and maybe without her, Oklahoma football doesn't get Billy Bowman on campus, but we can talk about that later. But I just, she said to me, I'm going to actually be a little bit nervous with the crowd. And that I thought that was cool to hear a moment of honesty, but you couldn't tell it from her play. So I think that adrenaline rush that you get from the crowd, and it might be a little bit different because they do play at 11 a.m. and maybe that's good for this team because when you play that early session, you always know if you win, you control your own start times the rest of the way. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be any added pressure for Oklahoma, except to know you're going up against a team that honestly, there's not a lot of tape on. There's not a lot out there on it. You're not going to – I was pulling up their schedule while you were talking. I'm just going to go – I don't think that when you were in, Lynchburg and the Longwood and Liberty Invitational or the JMU tournament, how far back do you go? Do you just focus on the now? So I think it's going to be fascinating to see the adjustment that Oklahoma makes to someone that, is maybe not on Gabby Plain's level, but also in the same vein right there. It's not as if it's this big drop-off from what Gabby Plain has done. She did it at a very visible program at a Power 5 conference. Odyssey Alexander did it and was pretty dominant almost in the shadows. So I think it's going to be very fascinating, Eric, to follow the adjustments that JT and his lineup make because that's going to be the key to the Sooners moving on.
I agree, and certainly some nerves. Make sure you're sound defensively is going to be a key. Don't give extra outs on either side. I think it's going to be really, really fascinating and interesting storyline with Oklahoma JMU getting us started, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. Mr. Plank is going to be on the call. He's going to be on the air pretty much the next week. One more time, just tell the audience where they can find you because you're going to be everywhere on the air. Your voice is going to be heard everywhere.
Yeah, and my wife would say that's a bad thing, but The one thing that I do know, is in addition to the Oklahoma radio network and the Sooners carrying all the games, I want to bring this up. Regular radio stations nationwide are picking up every game. Sirius XM Channel 84 is picking up every game. You can go to westwood1sports.com. The official NCAA Women's College World Series app has every game. The TuneIn app on the Westwood One channel has every game. And on Alexa-enabled devices, just saying open Westwood One Sports will make it happen. So, see, I have my cheat sheet, boys. I didn't have that all memorized. But anyway, you can hear every game. If you can't see it, we've got you covered. And, by the way, it's a free preview weekend on Sirius XM. So a lot of cool ways to check out the Women's College World Series this week. And I'm glad you're here, Vic. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, man. Wish you were here, E.
I wish I was there. Tell Aaron Miller we want her on the show. We got to get her on the show. She has
we'll make it happen.
She doesn't have to be on the air like you do for the next week in a row there.
She's good.
Listen. Hey, congratulations. Seriously, you deserve it.
Buddy.
I'm excited. I'll be listening. Enjoy yourself this week, man. You've earned it. And thanks for doing this, buddy. Have fun.
Yeah, man. You guys are awesome. Have a great rest of your show, and I'll see you soon.
All right. That's Chris Blake, ladies and gentlemen, joining us here. Wow. That guy's going to be busy for the next week, Victor, but it's going to be tremendous.
The hardest working man in sports and entertainment, Mr. Chris Plank, ladies and gentlemen.
That's correct on that. So we hope to enjoy him on. All right, Victor, I'm going to kind of quickly get a drink of water. Tell the audience what they can expect on Thursday's podcast, because we're still going to come out with Thursday's podcast and as well as some of the coverage throughout the week, because you're going to be at OKC. You're going to witness it all. Well, don't mute yourself first. Right now, Vic's muted. See, now that's not good, Vic. You cannot mute yourself. There you go.
How about now?
Don't Tony Reali yourself. Yeah, there you go. Don't Tony Reali yourself. Come on.
Self-promotion is debating calling the mute button after all, Mr. Lopez. If you watch around the horn, you would know that already. So as I was saying before I so rudely muted myself, coming up on tomorrow's episode, we're going to have 3 guests. We're going to have Dr. Megan Turk come on the podcast, recap a tremendous Division III National Championship won by Virginia Wesleyan. Congratulations to Brendan Elliott and the Marlins, their 3rd national title in the last 4 years. We're also going to be joined by Georgia pitching coach Rachel Fico. Eric got a chance to talk to her prior to the Dogs departing to Oklahoma State for their opening round matchup versus Oklahoma State. They talk about the Dogs and the truth, as Ray Robinson likes to call her, Mary Wilson Avance. And also we had Jordan Schusterman from Cesar's Family Barbecue. They've been doing a lot of tweeting about softball during this postseason, particularly in the Supers. Had a chance to talk to Jordan about that. And we make a very special announcement about plans that we're going to have in 2022. I won't say too much more. You have to listen to the podcast tomorrow to find out what that announcement will be. And plus, later on tonight, we're going to make our predictions live on the air that you can hold us to, ridicule us, and make fun of us on all of our social media. Speaking of social media, follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Inner Circle SB. Subscribe and download to Inner Circle. Turn your notifications on. That way you don't miss another episode. You can find us on Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes. You name it, you can find us there. Rate and review us 5 stars, please. And thank you. And as Eric mentioned, subscribe to our YouTube page. So, because every night, after the final game is over, we're going to be live in the Circle Live from OKC. We're going to have guests. We're going to have analysis. We're going to have commentary right here on In the Circle. We're the standard. We are the originals. And we are going to do it again.
Exactly. No doubt. All right, let's get into some of the matchups here. Oklahoma JMU, Victor. What are you looking forward to seeing that on Thursday?
The big thing for JMU, you cannot give outs early in the game to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is going to have the crowd on their side. It's an 11 a.m. Central start. A lot of crimson will be in the stands. If you're Odyssey Alexander, just take a deep breath and just focus on getting through that first inning unscathed. If you can get through those first two innings relatively clean and keep the game scoreless, get yourself some momentum, then all the pressure goes on Oklahoma's side. If you're JMU, you're playing with house money here. You went to an SEC site, knocked off Tennessee. You went to another SEC site, you knocked off Missouri. You're playing with house money. Play loose, play confident, and you have the support of all the mid-majors behind you. So JMU, relax, have fun, and if you keep it close, the longer this game stays close, the more pressure gets put on Oklahoma. And we've seen that, Eric, in this postseason. The longer the games go and it's tight, the underdog always seems to find a way to pull it out. So if you're JMU, keep it close early and put the pressure back on Oklahoma.
Couple of comments out here. Fabric 86. I'll be disappointed if OU doesn't run rule JMU. That's a strong. Now OU, and if it was another team, I would say, well, that's kind of disrespectful. But Oklahoma has run ruled a lot of teams. Still, I wouldn't go in with that mindset. I think you take a win, whether it's run rule or not. I would not shell it short.
A dub is a dub. You take it. You take it any way you can get it.
Joni writes, my Gators didn't make it, but I'm rooting for JMU to make it farther than most would give them credit. Yeah. What do you do? I'm going to be curious, Victor, as you're there in person. I agree. It'll be a pro Sooner crowd and all that, but I do wonder, how many JMU fans will be there, and then how many people are talking JMU. I was covering the D3 championship this week. Granted, it's in Salem, Virginia, so of course they're going to talk JMU, but there's a lot of people talking JMU across the board, not just even the casual fans are kind of intrigued by JMU, even though us people know how good they are. But I think a lot of people are intrigued to see them that haven't seen them before.
This is really the first taste that we've seen JMU on a national level. Yes, they had that tremendous run with Megan Good and Jalen Ford, and when they got to the Supers in 2016, and Good and Alexander led it to Supers in 2019. But this is really the first time that we're seeing Jay Madison on the highest national level, on the pinnacle of softball, and you get to take on, some people say, the pinnacle of softball in terms of teams this season in Oklahoma. So a lot of casual fans are going to have that first Why are you giving that look, sir?
Did you say the word? Did you say pinnacle?
Well, look. The only reason I said
don't you know that's in the Circle's biggest rival, Pinnacle? Oh wait, that's a whole other different program. Never mind.
We have to throw them a bone every now and again. I mean,
wrestling term there. Sorry for those that don't know.
Yes, if you following our show for the first time, first of all, thank you, and secondly, we do make some wrestling references every now and again. So if we had to explain them to you, please forgive us. And for our diehard fans, hey, forgive us. We're welcoming casual fans into the fold for softball. We're welcoming casual fans to our podcast as well. So we have to explain a few things.
Yes, we do. Although I got to tell you, with news coming out today from the ratings for the Oklahoma-Washington game viewership for ABC, 901,000 viewers. That's actually more viewers than any NXT wrestling show or AEW show. So I'm just saying, softball may be a little more popular than wrestling, Victor. So maybe, and
with the I'm not saying that's going to happen, but knock on wood, but possibility that the Champ Series could be going to ABC or on simulcast.
Maybe. We'll see. That's the first we've heard. We have not heard that. That's just, I guess, the rumor. We have no confirmation on that.
Exactly.
That would be cool.
Just speculation. Maybe a nice simulcast.
But I feel like it's headed there at some point. If not this year, in the future. Clearly. It just makes too much sense.
Give it at least, I say, by 2023. I would not be surprised by 2023 you have a simulcast on ESPN and ABC of the Champ Series.
I don't know about a simulcast, but I could see it by next year, because remember, next year ESPN will have the rights to the National Hockey League as well for their playoffs. And then the NBA should be back to a normal schedule. One of the things what's amazing about the softball numbers, and for those that don't know, ESPN came out, this is the most watched super regional they've had in a long time, which is amazing because the majority of the games were on ESPN2. Normal years, they would be majority of the games on ESPN, which has about 10 to 20 million more homes than ESPN2. But because the NBA started their playoffs later, that's why there's more conflicts. Whereas right now, normally, there would be an NBA Finals going on. Instead, we're still at the first round at the end, which is why, by the way, the Friday's winners bracket games are likely to be on ESPNU, because the ESPN's got some game sixes in the NBA playoffs. I haven't watched. I know there's all the 4 games tonight. If those 4 games go to a game 6, they're all going to be on ESPN on Friday night, ESPN2. So that's why softball might be on the U. But I do think this game will draw and will be on ABC in the postseason. If not next week, definitely I think next year or so. I think it's headed that way. It just makes too much sense. That's a big number, 901,000 viewers. That crushes, for example, the volleyball national championship game, which had about 600,000. It dominates the WNBA viewership. It beats a lot of the Major League Baseball regular season games on overall. A monster number. It's the most watched super regional. That super regional game is the second most watched super regional game of all time. Alabama, Texas, 2019, game 3 at over a mil is the most watched super regional game. That's it. And it was about nearly 1.1 million for that game. And the thing that I think if Washington, Oklahoma would have been a more competitive game, I think it would have cracked a million. I really do.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But anyway, so that's a positive because, in sports, Victor, you and I cover all the other sports. The narrative has been during this pandemic is the sports ratings are down.
No.
Yeah, big time, but not softball. This is very positive news, I think, for softball heading into the Women's College World Series. And I think they'll post some big numbers with some good storylines headed here. Yeah. And obviously it helps. You have Oklahoma in and Oklahoma State from that market standpoint. And you got some power brands like Arizona and Alabama and UCLA in there as well.
Yeah, I think this is probably the year where you kind of get the best of all worlds when you're returning back to Oklahoma City. You had the powerhouse programs with the Oklahoma and the Arizonas. You had the defending national champion UCLA. You get some new blood in James Madison. You get Georgia getting in as an unseeded team again to Oklahoma City. It has a little bit of everything, Eric. And actually an underrated storyline that you mentioned, Eric, with the coverages. Of course, this is the Women's College World Series. First time we haven't had Adam Amin. Kevin Brown will be working with Amanda Scarborough. They're going to be on the part of the afternoon session. And then part of the studio coverage will be Courtney Lau with Caleb Rowe and Janie Dalton-Hill. Yeah,
Courtney getting to do the host of studio. She's been pretty busy there. We're going to try to get her on the podcast this week. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Question here. After recent play in the Supers, do you guys still believe UCLA is the best team out there?
I don't. Because
you don't?
UCLA,
okay.
Here's why. Because UCLA did release a statement earlier in the week about Megan Fariamo having a hand injury and is not with the team in Oklahoma City and is considered day-to-day. So
look at you, Victor, with the breaking news there. Look at you. I love it. You're working.
That concerns me with UCLA. Look, they got the previous 2-time player of the year, Rachel Garcia, and she's excelled on this stage before. I was there in 2019 when I walked off home run eliminating Washington to put them in the champ series. But there's a lot of, and again, Chris mentioned it when we had him on. This is the 5th time UCLA is playing Florida State in the Women's College World Series. And Lonnie Alameda has been on the right side of the ledger more times than not over Coach Eniwe Perez. And remember, Eric, that 2018 Elimination Sunday where the Seminoles beat UCLA twice to get to the champ series. We all know what happened there.
Yeah, the Megan Fariamo injury news, that's significant. And that definitely makes you pause. I would not discount him, though, and I wouldn't discount Rachel Garcia, who I think she's motivated. Think about it. She's pitching here in the Women's College World, playing in the Women's College World Series, and then in about 50 days, hopefully, will be in Japan for the U.S. national team and the Olympic team trying to get a gold medal. So she's got a lot of motivation going on.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Oklahoma is the favorite because of their offense and their pitching. As I mentioned with Chris, I was really impressed with Nicole May. And I think if they got 3 arms and if G. Juarez is like locked in and pitching to that All-American level, look out. Might, big deal. I do think UCLA is still in the mix. I think Alabama's in this mix. Fouts and Alabama has that experience from 19. They pushed Oklahoma that year. That could have gone either way there. I think going in, those are your 3 favorites. If I did a pecking or a reseed, if you will, or I don't know, or odds, I would say Oklahoma's the. There you go. Right. I think Oklahoma's the favorite. UCLA's the second choice. Bama's third choice. I think Arizona's the 4th choice. And I think this is a team, man, there's a lot of motivation here with Mike Candrea. They want to win one more for Mike. And we don't know what, we mentioned it earlier. We don't know what the future holds. He could be coming back next year. But look, as a reminder with the Mike Krzyzewski news, who knows how many more trips Mike Candrea has left in his career. So I think they don't, I think Arizona, I've seen him in person. I'm telling you, that Arizona-Alabama game is just, is dynamic.
That's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a fun game to watch. I think of the 4 games, Eric, I'm the most excited to see that one, just to see how Montana Fouts handles that lineup with Alyssa Palomino Cardozo, with Muli Pola, Jesse Harper and company. Which actually got another also got another comment from Joni Beach. She says about Rachel Garcia, and she didn't get Player of the Year. She may have something to prove. We all know about that, playing with a chip on your shoulder.
And by the way, we've agreed with the decision. Jocelyn should be the Player of the Year. But if I'm a great player, you could use that to your motivation, and I agree. I think Rachel. So I agree. I think that's a very valid point. Let's go quickly talk some of the other matchups here. Oklahoma State, Georgia, kind of under the radar game. Oak State here, Kenny Gajewski back. Great story. And I asked Kenny Gajewski, if you listen to our Monday podcast, you heard his emotional thoughts on this. John Barfield.
Tuesday podcast.
Tuesday, thank you. I'm so used to Monday, Thursday routine there, so I appreciate that. John Barfield, longtime Tulsa head coach, great head coach at Tulsa, an assistant at Oklahoma State, coaching in the Women's College World Series for the first time in his career. John Barfield, a great guy. And Kenny Gajewski mentioned that. He was emotional about so happy that he's getting a chance to coach there against a Georgia team that is unseeded, coming out of nowhere, and wins the regional against Duke and then just dominated Florida in the Super Regionals. We will have Rachel Fico on our Thursday podcast. I spent a few minutes with her before she went on the airport. But a fascinating stat here for you, Victor. 9 teams since 2005 have made it to Oklahoma City as an unseeded team.
Okay.
Two of those teams have had Rachel Fico. This year's Georgia team, where she's the assistant coach, and the 2012 LSU. Yep. So it's kind of unique how that works. She knows a thing or two. This is the 3rd time for her in the Women's College World Series, 5th time for Lou Harris-Champer. But I get a sense they're a lot more, and I covered them in 18. I get a sense they're a more confident team right now than they were at any point in that 18 Women's College World Series. Doesn't mean they're going to win. I'm just telling you, the way Mary Wilson is throwing the ball, I feel there's a swagger, there's a confidence there. Justin Fields' sister, although we got to start calling her now. Maybe Justin Fields is the sister of Justin. That's maybe how we. He's not going to be the most popular Fields anymore. I'm just saying. I mean, he is a quarterback with the Bears. I get it, but. She's been tremendous.
And what's been so fascinating, Eric, is that this is a Georgia team that going into the postseason, they were playing their worst softball. And then they find a way to flip the switch. They win in the regionals in a wild game versus Duke. They go to Gainesville. And I could make the argument, Eric, that performance in Gainesville was the most dominant performance by any team in the Super. With pitching and hitting.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Jayden Fields has been fantastic. She's a star in the making there. And, man, it's just she's been fantastic for them. Interesting storyline in this Oklahoma State-Georgia game that was addressed in the press conference today. There's a couple of former Georgia Bulldogs on the Cowgirls roster that transferred to Oklahoma State. Allison Febri, for example, was at Georgia, now at Oklahoma State. There, just to name one of them, for example, in particular. And then obviously Jordan Doggett, both of them as grad students. They're a couple. Lou Harris-Champer addressed that in the press conference. She was asked about that. She said she roots for them every game except, Thursday.
Yes. The one that's being played at 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern.
Yeah. But she made a point about this. I want your thoughts on this. We're probably going to see more of this, right, in the future with the transfer portal now. It's so much easier to transfer. I think you're going to see more movement in the especially this offseason, but in coming years, we're going to see more of this where like players are going to, teams are going to face, other teams that had former players. I think this is not the last time we're going to hear about this.
This is going to be the standard more than the exception within the next couple of years, if we're not at that point already.
Yeah. I'm very fascinated by this matchup. Oklahoma State, we'll see what, they look like. What's your thoughts on this game?
It's going to come down to which pitcher makes the first mistake. And you're dealing with two pitchers who make very few mistakes, so Mary Wilson-Avon and Corey Eberle from Oklahoma State. It will not surprise me if we're going into the later innings and it's a 1-0 or 1-1 game.
So you're going low scoring.
Yes.
You're going low scoring. Okay.
Typically in the opening day, I feel pitching always finds a way to handle the hitting. As the tournament gets closer, as the tournament continues on, then you start to see the offenses pick up. This has the potential to be the best pitching matchup on day one.
Wow.
With Georgia and Carly Eberle. It would not surprise me if that ended up being the case.
That is bold. All right. We'll get you. We'll have you on record for that. That is certainly some of the storylines in the afternoon session. The evening session, of course, will have Arizona and Alabama. Jacob makes a great point here. Fouts has 14 innings pitched against Arizona in her career and has not allowed an earned run or an extra base hit against the Wildcats. How much do you carry that, Victor? How much is that a factor, that Fouts has had success against Arizona in the past? Is that something or nothing here going into this matchup?
It's something. It's definitely something, particularly the way Montana Fouts has been pitching in this postseason. She has kicked it to another gear, if that's even humanly possible, with the SEC pitcher. And I feel Montana Fouts has something to prove because she felt that she should have been in that possible Final Three for National Player of the Year instead of Allo or Garcia or Gabby Plain. She's pitching as well as anybody in the sport in the last month and a half. And the wild card, and here's the thing, Eric, and I want to give you this stat. Florida State 2018, UCLA 2019. The previous year, they lost in the semifinal to the eventual champion. Alabama lost to Oklahoma. Granted, they played for the championship and lost to UCLA. So they played to the team. They lost to the team that played to the championship series and then won the title the following season. Alabama has something to prove.
Wow. This is pretty bold, gutsy here. Very gutsy. That's pretty good. Should be a fun one. I don't know, man. I think this Arizona team's on a mission here, and I'm not saying that they're gonna beat Alabama or anything like that, but I don't know if I'm not gonna carry a lot of weight about past meetings. I just don't. I think Mike Contreras said this is the best they've played all year. I think these seniors, and remember, 2 years ago, when you were there, Victor, Arizona, the big story was, hey, they finally got back to the Women's College World Series. Yes. It was like this big monkey out of their back. That's gone. Now, yes. Now they're here to win. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, finally we got to. Now they're here to win. I think they're dangerous.
And they probably still have the best one of the best three-hitter monsters in college softball in the lineup with Jesse Harper, Alyssa Palomino Cardoza, and Deja Mulipola. And they have some great supporting cast around them, Canoso, Palacios as well. They have a very strong lineup. And if the pitching could do just enough with Alyssa Denham and Mariah Lopez, if they can get the pitching, then I think they can match bat for bat with Alabama.
That's the key. If they could get the consistent pitching like they did in the Fayetteville Super Regional, I think that's the key. Arizona, they've been a little up and down pitching wise. I'm very fascinated by that matchup. I'm like I said, I'm not hiding the fact I'm really intrigued by this matchup. Kendrea versus Murphy, both of them, I think, feel really good about their chances. We'll see what happens. Now, the last game of the night, UCLA and Florida State. Are you a little nervous, Victor, by Plank's prediction that game could be real late? Like, could be late hours there?
I will have caffeine properly and readily available.
Fair enough. UCLA, Florida State, a game I know very well. Chris mentioned they played 3 times in 2018. I can confirm that. I was there. I saw 3 of them. And I think you saw them as well in Clearwater in 19 or 20, whatever year it was. I lose track of what years that are. But nonetheless, interesting matchup. Now, Kelly has a question. What are your thoughts on UCLA as a team? They give me the Florida vibes, like waiting for the clutch hit. I guess if you had to pick that, because they've been there, done that, because of the dynamic players they have, I could see that. I could see that about the Florida. I mean, because you got Amaya Brady. By the way, how much do you think the Brady storyline will come up this week?
Whatever number it is, take the over.
Do you think Mr. Uncle Tom comes out and makes a cameo? Tom Brady, little Tom Brady cameo. Apparently the reports are he doesn't even have to really practice much at camps. He's just going to be more of a coach. I think he should show up.
They may make a TikTok video of him watching Maya the Women's in the World Series.
All right, that's over my head. You're more the hip guy on that stuff. I don't know what that means. So I don't know, but I'm very intrigued by this matchup. Now, Florida State doesn't have the firepower offensively, at least on paper and statistically, like they did in 18. That being said, they do have players on this roster that were a part of that national championship team who I think have been a part of this postseason run. Elizabeth Mason hit the tying home run against LSU in Game 2 to extend that game. Cassidy Davis, among others. So they have that experience, have won it all, and they've carried them. And Sandercock's been phenomenal. Florida State also has three arms with Sandercock, Kaylin Arnold, and then Watson, who's been more of the closer role. I'll be curious Lonnie's game plan against that UCLA offense. You said you felt that Georgia versus Oklahoma State might be the lowest scoring game of the four. I actually think it's going to be Florida State and UCLA. That's my prediction. I think that will be the lowest scoring game because I think Florida State, I think it's a 2-0 game. It's going to be timely hitting there. I'm very fascinated. And obviously with the news you just mentioned about earlier about Megan being out, I would assume Rachel gets the ball. One thing that is interesting, and Lonnie mentioned this in her press conference, they've seen a lot of Rachel Garcia. So it's not like she's and Kelly Anyway Perez has mentioned that UCLA's on so often in postseason that everybody kind of sees Garcia. But I'm very interested to see that matchup. It's very deja vu 2018-esque, if you will. But I think that could be a tight, low-scoring game where you're like in the fifth inning, you're like, ooh, it's 1-1 maybe, or you know what I mean? Like, could be. What's going
to be interesting for me is who does Lonnie start? Does she start Sandercock or does she start Kaylin Arnold?
If I had to guess, it's Sandercock, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be right. So you're right. I mean, that's the beauty of it. She could go a lot of different ways with Lonnie, and don't be surprised if she splits the game up. She's done that too, as well. I believe Florida State's only had 11 complete games as a staff this year, so she's not afraid to go to the bullpen and go to different matchups.
Yeah, Sandercock has not recorded a complete game all year. Except for postseason, of course.
Right. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting in the matchups there. Very, very, very interesting. All right. So, what is your pick? Are you going to make a pick here as far as who do you have winning the national title? I mean, I'm very intrigued. I do think this is wide open. I do think Oklahoma, UCLA, Alabama are the three favorites for the national title. I feel like if the national champion is not one of those three, it could be a surprise. It would surprise some people. Don't you agree with that? Like, that would surprise some people. Like, if we did a poll right now, if we hit 100 people, I feel like 90+% would say either UCLA, Oklahoma, or Alabama.
Yeah, that's a reasonable number. What's going to be it's going to be who ends up in those winners bracket games on Friday night. That's going to be because you could have a scenario, Eric, where you can have Bedlam and Alabama UCLA. Quite possibly. Or you can have you can have the battle of the Pac-12, Arizona UCLA, on the other side of the draw. Or you can have a rematch of Oklahoma Georgia. And Mary Wilson shuts down the Cowgirl lineup, which we've shown she's capable of shutting down lineups. There are a multitude of possibilities that could take place. And again, it's always important winning that first game, getting yourself into that winner's bracket game, because if you lose that first game, you have to win twice on Saturday and you have to win twice on Sunday just to get to the Champs Series. And that's a very difficult road to toe, very difficult road to follow.
No, I agree with that. With that being said, what do you feel like we're headed? Like Florida State 2018 was a surprise. Not a lot of people were picking him going in there, especially after they lost the first game. to UCLA. They came out of the losers bracket, eliminated Georgia, then eliminated the top seed Oregon, beat UCLA twice on that Sunday, and then beat Washington to win the national championships in the championship series. So do you see who's that team? How about this? Who do you think is the Florida State of this year that could come out of nowhere, either out of the losers bracket or just come out of nowhere and surprise and end up in the championship series and maybe win this title that we didn't see coming?
Georgia.
Wow. Okay.
Because they already beat Oklahoma. They have the confidence, and they have the pitcher, Mary A. Van Wilson, that can shut down the lineup.
I've said it before. I think Arizona, and it sounds weird, but they are the 11th seed. And I think that's a team that I would pick is that coming out of nowhere, if you want to call it that. That would be the pick. But I would still pick, if I had to bet money, I would bet on Oklahoma, UCLA, or Alabama. Like if you told me take Oklahoma, Alabama, UCLA, or the field, I would take Oklahoma, Alabama, UCLA. But that's risky. I mean, it's risky because Arizona could steal it. Florida State has experience. You like Georgia. So who knows? This could be an unpredictable year. I'm very curious to see how the teams come out, nerves, how is it, and obviously the renovations in the stadium and so forth. So it's going to be fun.
100% capacity. Second deck's going to be open. It's gonna be glorious on tomorrow.
All right, let's go over the All-Americans were announced today. So I want your thoughts, Vic, here. I'm going to read them off from first team on. And I know, and then we'll kind of thoughts here. First team All-American, Montana Fouts pitcher, Megan Faramo, Keely Richard, Mary Half, Gabby Plain, and then Rachel Garcia, if you want to count her. She's more than a two-way utility pitcher slot. Those are the pitchers that are in the first team All-American. Deja Mulipula is your first team All-American catcher. Allison Febri, first base, Oklahoma State. Tiara Jennings, your second base. Charla Eccles, Florida, third base. Sammy Williams, Iowa State, huh? First team All-American, shortstop. That's pretty big. Congrats to Jamie Pinkerton and company. Jocelyn Allo, Jada Coleman, Maya Brady, your outfielders. That's pretty darn good. Aaliyah Jordan in that DP or utility non-pitcher slot, first team All-American there. Kayla Kowalik at large catcher. Go figure. She's first team All-American. But she's a second team SEC. Nice job, SEC coaches. Nice job.
It just means more.
Braxton Burnside is also in a first team All-American, as is Bailey Henfel, first team All-American. Second team, Ashley Rogers, Carrie Eberly, Catherine Sandercock are your pitchers there, alongside an Odyssey Alexander's a two-way player, Valerie Cagle, second team All-American, Alex Taracco of Michigan, second team All-American pitchers. Kinsey Hansen, the catcher from Oklahoma, second team. Danielle Gibson, first base for Arkansas. Bailey Klingler, second base, Washington. Jenna Cohn, third base, George Washington. Grace Lyons, shortstop, Oklahoma. Aaliyah Andrews in the outfield for LSU. Kiki Malloy from Tennessee. And Abby Sweet of Notre Dame in the outfield for second team. Deja Davis, Duke, also a second team member. Sis Bates at large shortstop, second team. Taylor Pleasance, also second team for LSU. Maddie Hackbarth, Arizona State at large catcher, makes second team. Your thoughts on the second team before we continue?
If it was me, I would flip Sis Bates with Hannah Adams at second team. That's just me.
But who are you talking about? Hannah Adams was not first team.
No. Hannah Adams was third team. I would put her on the second team.
Oh, I see. You would move on. Well, I see you're spoiling this. All right, fine. I'll continue to go third team here. So third team, Brooke Yanez is your pitcher. Elizabeth Hightower, Alyssa Denham, Arizona, Hightower, Florida, making it third team All-American there. Alongside Georgina Korick as well. Haley Lee, the catcher for A&M. Third team, Kaylee Towle, first base, Alabama. Hannah Adams, Florida, second team, second base, third team All-American. Hannah Pizzeria, Fullerton, third base. Brianna Perez, shortstop, UCLA. Brooke Wilmus, outfield, Missouri. Haley Cruz, outfield, Missouri. Now the Ultra Plus A Pride, by the way, made her debut tonight in Stillwater. Janelle Mionio, who I've known covered, Arizona outfielder. Paige Rouch, good to see Paige Rouch, Villanova two-way player, makes third-team All-American. Mackenzie Bessel of South Carolina. Jesse Harper of Arizona. Sydney McKinney, shortstop, Wichita State. And Janae Jefferson of Texas rounds out your third-team All-American. So you're saying Adams should be a second-teamer. So you would pick her over Bailey Klingler, for example, because obviously Sis Bates is in the shortstop position. Adams, second base.
I would.
The just big snub here. Yeah. Just where she's meant to Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My big snub here is Haley Dolcini. Fresno State. How many times have we talked about her on the show, Victor?
I feel like every other podcast we've mentioned Haley Dolcini winning Mountain West Pitcher of the Week, which she did not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7. 7-time Mountain West Pitcher of the Week, and yet she can't get a sniff at All-American nod. Really?
Yeah, I would have put her in there. I would have found a spot for her. I think, to me, she should have been on it. 3 outs away from beating UCLA. One of the things I don't like about some of these awards, postseason influences some of these awards. And the problem with that is it gives an advantage to teams that go deep in the postseason. And I just think, to me, sometimes, that's to a disadvantage of some of the players that just, make it to a regional.
Or don't even make it a postseason at all, like Fullerton.
Sure. Right. I mean, I was glad to see Hannah Becerra make it at third base there. I think Josini should have been in it. Who do you take out? I know that's the question you're going to ask me. I think there's room. I would have flipped her with Brooke Giannis, personally. That's the flip. That's the flip I would have done because, again, I just think Josini should have been in there. Corrick, third-team All-American, very solid. I actually would have flipped her in Storako. I would have put Corrick second team. You look at how she carried that South Florida team, and this is not Alex Storako's fault, but Michigan played a conference-only schedule. To me, I would have dropped her to third team because of that. And that's not a knock on her. I just think that highly of the pitching this year.
So you would have – so just to make sure, you would have Dolcini and Corrick on the second team.
No. I would have Josini on the third team. I would take out Brooke Giannis from Oregon. Nothing against Giannis. She's good. But I just feel like Josini was better. And I'm not taking Hightower out because she helped Florida win the regular season title. She was a big part of that. But point is, Dolcini should be in there. And then Corrick, I would actually move to the second team, and I would move Storako to third team. That's all.
Fair enough.
As far as first team, do I have any issues here? Not really. I mean, I actually like – well, I'll give you one. I'll give you another player I think is a snub. Sammy Bunch. Explain to me how Sammy Bunch can go from being a top 25 finalist for National Player of the Year but not be on one of the 3 All-American teams. Does that make sense? Now, granted, shortstop is a very strong position. I mean, read you all the shortstops that made it. Sammy Williams, first team. Braxton Burnside is the at-large shortstop spot. You look at second team, you mentioned Sis Bates. She makes it as an at-large shortstop. Grace Lyons is the shortstop, makes it second team. Taylor Pleasance also makes it. And that's what kind of confusing. On the second team, they were able to put 3 shortstops on the second team. But yet in Division 3, but then in others they don't. And then Jesse Harper and Brianna Perez are your third team shortstop. So I get it. It's a deep position, but you got to find a spot for Sammy Bunch, who was a top 25 finalist, Vic. Top 25.
Yeah.
And listen, no one's a bigger fan of Sammy Williams than I am. But that is to suggest that Sammy Williams is that much better than a Sammy Bunch when I don't buy that. I think they're close. So if Sammy Williams, which I don't have a problem with Sammy Williams at first team, Sammy Bunch needs to be around maybe second team.
Yeah.
That's the other snub. And again, though, what did I just say? Northern Iowa, regional. They don't get out of the regional, you get forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you look at shortstops, Harper, obviously in the World Series. Perez, World Series. Pleasant Super Regionals. Bates Super Regionals. Grace Lyons, World Series. Burnside Super Regionals. Sammy Williams is the only one that didn't get out of a regional at the shortstop position that makes it. But I personally, to me, again, Sammy Bunch was a top 25 finalist for Player of the Year. Top 25. There's more than 25 players on these three-team on the All-American teams.
Yeah,
and yet she's not on it.
I got nothing for you, brother. If you want me to give you some sort of rational answer, I got nothing for you, man. I'm sorry.
There's 54 players overall on these three All-Americans. Again, I'm going to say it again. There's 54 players on these three teams for the All-American, but yet no room for a player that was a top 25 finalist. That was recent. What?
Don't get it. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
All right, Joni says she's with you, Vic. What is she's agreeing with you about?
On my take about Hannah Adams.
I'm with you, by the way. I didn't mean to dismiss that. I'm with you. Hannah Adams was clutch defensively. We have to reward players that are great defensively. Now, Adams had a big year offensively, but defense was her ding as well. Great two-way player. So you would move. Yeah, I agree. I would have moved her up over Klingler and move her up to second team. Let me see if I can I make an argument for her for first team? Let's see. Nah, that's tough. Thierry Jennings, second team, second base.
No. You're going to have to – no, Adams is going to be second team. Adams will have to be second team.
Yeah.
You're not going to move. Yeah. You're not going to move Jennings. You're not going to move Sammy Williams.
Yeah, I agree. Second team, though, I agree. I would flip her and Klingler. I think that's fair. Any issues with Cagle at second team for Clemson? She's a utility pitcher, second team.
None. I have no issue with it.
Yeah, it's hard because Garcia's in the utility pitcher spot, first team, and then Mary Half is an at-large pitcher. So, yeah, you're right. That's tough. Yeah, you're not – there's just no room there. There's no room, which is why my issue with Barry Trammell, the columnist at Oklahoma, all he kept asking today, Victor, on these press conferences, is there too much offense in the game? Are you listening to some of the pictures we have right now in the game? Are you kidding me? Anyway, not to go off on that. But, I'm just saying. By the way, the other one I would consider, let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Would you consider flipping Megan Ferramo from first team to second team and plugging in an Ashley Rogers or Eberle into the second team, into the second team, and then moving up Rogers or Eberle to first team?
No.
Because I think I would.
I would not, simply because of what Ferramo did for UCLA, especially with that time that Richie Garcia missed. She was carrying that staff without Garcia.
Fair. Okay. That's fair. We got a listener from Canada. Hey, checking in from Canada. Love this time of year. Who doesn't? Olympics. We will have Olympic coverage, by the way. I'm not going to say we're going to go live from the Olympics. We're not going to say we're going to be up in the morning.
I'm going to say we're not going to go live when the Olympics are going on, because some of us like to sleep.
But we will have coverage. We haven't figured it out how or what, but we will have coverage.
He doesn't sleep. I do.
Yeah, except this week. You're not sleeping this week.
Well, I'll be sleeping. I'll be sleeping later than expected.
Let's see. I just want to go through. I always love doing this All-American stuff. The cool thing about going live is on the podcast, we just don't have time. But here we do. This is, it's an interesting, very strong field. I'm always interested here. Any other issues, any other comments on these All-Americans here that I'm looking at here? I think for the most part, it's good. I think the ones we've addressed here are kind of the snubs. I think Sammy Bunch and Docini are the two big snubs that jumps out at me.
Yes.
Any problems? Again, Now, some might say, wait a minute, Odyssey Alexander why is she only second team? But I think it's the same point you brought up. Who are you going to take out? You can't take out a Rachel Garcia per se, necessarily. So I'm kind of with you on that. Tough. It's tough. Tough boat here.
It's a tough process every year, Eric. There are going to be people that are going to be on first team, second team that should have been on the first team. There are people that are going to be on the third team, should have been on the second team. And there are people like Dolcini who should have been an All-American altogether.
Allie Dubois is another name that's popped up. But again, this is very deep pitching-wise. But obviously you got, Sylvester, the kid from Miami of Ohio. I mean, it's funny. I know yes. Thank you. It's Barry Trammell, and what columnists are doing is they always have a narrative they want to push. Clearly, he's going to work on a column about the offense. So much offense in the game, but yes, there is a lot of offense. But I don't think there's still a lot of great pitchers, and I still think, as we've seen in the postseason, you still need the pitch to win. Yes, you still need the pitch to win. So
pitching is still going to carry the day.
Yeah. We're not in college. Remember college baseball in the Gorilla era, Victor, when they had the aluminum bats
Gorilla ball, champion. Yes.
Yeah. And it was like 21-14 in the finals. And they finally realized, hey, maybe we should lower these aluminum bats. Maybe they're a little out of control. We're not there. We're nowhere near that with softball. I think we're fine. We're fine. But that's just me.
I think we're I feel like we're at a nice place with the game where we do have good offense. We do have some pitching. Obviously, the rules need some interpretation, but that's a whole nother podcast, so we can get into that.
But I also think we have a lot of talent. I mean, we just went through the All-American list. There's a lot of talent there. By the way, feel free to send out comments. If you feel there's any other snubs on the All-Americans, let us know as well. So we'll see how that goes. All right, a couple last things before we sign off here. Shane Winkler was introduced today as the East Carolina head coach, comes over from GW, Victor. Speaking of Janet Cone, had success there. Your thoughts on that move? It's an interesting move. Winkler to ECU, obviously taking over for Courtney Oliver. There's a lot of tradition at ECU. He's very familiar with the area of the Carolinas. I think East Carolina clearly wanted a head coach experienced coach because Courtney had not had head coaching experience prior. And as you know this, covering sports, a lot of times you tend to do go with a higher opposite of what you just had. So I think they wanted a coach with head coaching experience. And I think Shane Winkler's been a winner. So I don't have an issue at all with the hire.
You look at the coaches now that are going to be in the American with Winkler, with Brett Benner, with Ball Malone, Erickson, Vesley. You have a great cradle of coaches in the American, and you're adding Winkler into that fold. I think if you give East Carolina a couple of years, he can build that program to where he got George Washington. Now, the road's going to be more difficult in the American than it was in the Atlantic 10. But I think Winkler can get East Carolina back to where they were in the early mid-2000s and 2010s, where they were competing for conference titles on a regular basis.
Agreed. I agree. By the way, final from Stillwater. Team USA beats the Pride 3-2. Haley McClenny with the walk-off homer.
Good news, Justin was for Bama fans.
Could be an omen. Justin McLeod was going to join us from Stillwater, but the game ended and, technical issues. So he'll join us, though, at some point this week.
Yes.
Rob Stelfer.
He'll join us, so looking forward to having him on.
All right, here we go. I think we want people want our predictions, Victor. We've dodged it enough. How do you not see an Oklahoma UCLA final? I would almost bet a week's wages. Woo-hoo! Are you willing to bet a week's wages, Victor?
I'm not betting any of my own money. Thank you very much. But if I had to bet Monopoly money, entertainment purposes only, of course, I'm going to go. I was going to go Oklahoma UCLA, but with the Ferramo news, I'm now going Oklahoma, Alabama.
Now, what's interesting, Victor, you and I before the season picked Alabama UCLA.
Like a bunch of dopes.
Yeah. Yes, we did. Justin, why not? We'll talk behind him. He went LSU, Florida State, if I recall. This, I'm giving away material. Victor is going to use this at the end of the year when we play back some of their predictions, which will be cringy. But that's interesting, Victor. We're both. Are we both bailing on this? We're bailing on UCLA, Alabama here. We're bailing.
Well, we can't have Alabama, UCLA.
I mean, you could, depending. You could. It could be some wacky flip stuff going on.
I hate the freaking one team crossing over to another bracket. Can we eliminate that, please?
Let's go. Go. Vent. Go. You've been holding this for a while. Go.
No. That's all I got today. That's all I got.
Kelly chimes in. Oh my God! Oh, don't mute yourself there.
I didn't mute myself.
Very good. Kelly says, I honestly don't trust UCLA as a team. Fabric goes, OU. Kelly says, I trust Rachel. Rob Stelfer says, dark horse is Georgia. Agree with you, Victor. Dark horse, Georgia. Got on your bandwagon there. I trust Rachel.
Never underestimate a hot pitcher at the right time, and that's what Mary Wilson-Avon has been for the Bulldogs.
I do trust Rachel as well. Oh boy, now we're debating. People are arguing about Georgia. You knew this was going to break out at some point. Georgia's a fraud horse, says Fab. Oh, it's getting tense here. I think I trust Rachel. That's a fair liner. Am I going Oklahoma, Alabama? Are we doing that? Is that what we're going to do here, Vic?
Are you going to agree? Are you going to jump on my side of things?
I'm very concerned about that. Yes.
Oh Lord.
Plus, I might just keep the UCLA Alabama pick, but I don't know. I'll be honest, the Megan injury definitely concerns me. That's a big. If she was healthy, I would stick with my pick. Put it that way. But UCLA. Kelly brings up is UCLA's defense is suspect. We'll see. Did not look good in game 1 against Virginia Tech, but looked good after that. I don't know. It's the Megan news concerns me from a UCLA perspective, and Alabama's on fire. I know, but Oklahoma, it seems, is it destined to be their year? We'll find out. So many questions. What's exciting is they're going to decide it on the field because we don't have a clue. Let's be real. We don't. We just don't. We're guessing here. We don't. So how about we just forget what we're picking? Let's just enjoy the games. Victor, you're going to be in Oklahoma City. What can the audience expect from you this week in Oklahoma City?
Well, I'll be tweeting out my thoughts. There might be some videos prior to the game, just giving some thoughts on what's going on in Oklahoma City. I'll be covering the press conferences, and maybe working on getting some possible guests on the show. I was actually chatting with one of our colleagues who was on my flight to Oklahoma City, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, we got some guests. We're going to be on every night. As soon as the last game of the night or morning is done, we'll be on shortly after that. We'll tweet out what time we'll be on with the link, whatever time that is. We'll have some special guests, some current head coaches who in the sport will be joining us. We mentioned the aforementioned Justin. We know Justin will be joining us at some point because he'll be right by Vic. So Vic will obviously be a part of it, and we'll let you know. We're going to be on live every night from now until we crown a champion. Hello. No one else is doing that, by the way. They try, they copy, whatever. They know where they got the ideas from. So that's going to be exciting. Also, though, we're going to be on the podcast. If you're a podcast subscriber, it does not mean that you stop listening to the podcast, because on Thursday's episode, we got an in-depth coverage. We have Megan Turk on the show breaking down the Division III Virginia Wesleyan beating Texas Lutheran in a 3-game series, as well as Division II, Victor, where a dramatic finish, West Texas A&M wins it on a grand slam in the 6th to beat Biola. We go in depth on Division II and Division III. No other softball program, nowhere. I dare you, find it. You won't. Right here, D2, D3, extensive coverage, plus my exclusive one-on-one with Georgia assistant coach Rachel Fico, plus our newest friends, Victor. You got a chance to talk to.
Jordan Schusterman from Cespedes Family Barbecue will be on the podcast as well, and we got a couple things that we talked about on that podcast, sir, that you may want to pay attention to.
So make sure you download it, subscribe. You can watch it listen to it while you're watching the games, stuff like that. Great content there. We'll be on Monday as well, podcast. We'll have hopefully some original content there as well as some of the live show. We will be on live every night. And then Sunday night at some point, we'll preview the national championship series. We'll have a matchup, we hope, weather permitting, as we learn in D2, D3, no assurances. And we'll have a lot of guests. So shout out, by the way, Kristen posted up. Thank you. Southern Oregon wins the NAIA title over Oregon Tech. So Southern Oregon, national champions, Victor.
Jessica Pistol.
Back. That's kind of what I was thinking about. I was like, wow, she's back, and she wins the national championship after spending a couple years ago in San Diego. They went 54-6, and they win the NAIA national championship. Man, I wish there was a way that we could see these championship games. Like, accidentally, Victor, we didn't address this on the pod. We won't address this on the podcast because we have, as we mentioned, we have a lot on the show. Do you like the fact that, this happened by accident, but should D2 and D3 consider maybe playing the championship series on the Monday, Tuesday after the Super Regionals in D1 and before the D1 Women's College World Series to get more exposure?
I would really have to think about that answer.
Wow, what a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I really have to think about that.
How much time do you want?
Tomorrow's live episode.
All right. If I remember to bring it up, who knows? That could be risky because who knows what's going to happen in these 4 games tomorrow. Things could happen there. All right. So we're going to call it a night, but thanks to Chris Pike for joining us. Thanks to all of you chiming in with comments and questions. There are a lot of viewers. Keep this subscribed. We're going to be on live every night after the last game of the night. We're going to be on with some special guests. Victor will join us from somewhere in the stadium or outside the stadium. That's up to him. He will be tweeting throughout the day as well. We'll have some guests. We'll have the latest news and coverage that you won't get anywhere else from Oklahoma City and, of course, from elsewhere, the sport of softball. So, Victor, final thoughts.
It's nice to be back in Oklahoma City, ready to watch some tremendous softball, and I'm ready to enjoy all of the madness that's about to take place in these next few days in the Mecca of college softball, the newly expanded Hall of Fame Stadium. We're back home, my brother. We're back home.
Feels good. Feels good to be home. Feels good to get some games on. Should be exciting. So hope everybody enjoys it. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. We'll have post-game press conferences posted there. We'll also, obviously, have this show's live and much, much, much more. So, and in our podcast as well. So, for Victor Ainers, I'm Eric Lopez. We hope you've enjoyed this live edition of In the Circle at OKC at Women's College World Series. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you late Thursday night following Florida State and UCLA. Good night and play ball.
Good night, Canada.